The woman in seat 18F was a ghost, a carefully constructed illusion of normalcy, sitting calmly by the window of United Flight 899. To everyone else, she was just Avery Sutton, another consultant heading from Denver to Seattle. But no one on this Boeing 737 MAX could possibly guess she was Colonel Avery Sutton, the legendary F-22 pilot the world knew only by a single, fearsome call sign: Viper. So when a hostile, unidentified aircraft began menacing their flight path, and two of the world's most advanced fighter jets appeared on their wingtips, the elite pilots escorting them were about to hear a voice on their private frequency that was supposed to be a myth, a ghost from mission reports past. That one word, her call sign, would change the trajectory of everyone's life at 37,000 feet. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Now back to our story. The pre-dawn chill of the Denver International Airport terminal was a familiar, sterile embrace. Travelers swirled around in a predictable ballet of rolling luggage and hushed announcements, a river of humanity flowing toward their designated gates. Avery moved through it all with an practiced ease, a predator hiding in plain sight. Her nondescript charcoal blazer and dark jeans were a civilian uniform, meticulously chosen to make her disappear. At 38, years of relentless discipline had carved a quiet intensity into her features that most people misinterpreted as corporate focus, not the hypervigilance of someone who had flown through thunderstorms of enemy fire. The only thing that betrayed her was the watch on her wrist, a rugged, blacked-out timepiece with a ballistic nylon strap. To a civilian, it was just a durable sports watch. To a pilot, it was the unmistakable signature of a military aviator. Gate B-44 was a chaotic microcosm of society. Families with crying children, anxious business travelers, students glued to their phones. Avery found a seat against a far wall, a strategic position that gave her a clear view of the entire boarding area, a habit she couldn't break. She pulled a dog-eared thriller from her bag, not to read, but as a prop, a shield to deflect the unwanted small talk that was the curse of modern travel. For 3 years, she had worked to perfect this version of herself, the quiet, unassuming professional. It was a mission as demanding as any she'd flown, the mission of being no one special. Now boarding all groups for United Flight 819 with nonstop service to Seattle. A cheerful voice announced, slicing through the terminal's hum. Avery felt a familiar, tiny spike of adrenaline, the pre-flight jitters that never entirely went away. She slipped her bookmark into place, swung her simple backpack over one shoulder, and merged seamlessly into the queue. The methodical shuffle toward the jet bridge was a ritual she found oddly calming. Scan the ticket, smile at the agent, walk the narrow corridor. Nobody paid her any mind. Perfect. Her seat, 18F, was a window seat just behind the wing. She settled in, the familiar scent of recycled air and faint disinfectant filling her nostrils. Her seatmates were already there. Ben Carter, a gregarious man in his late 50s with a loud tie, and the unmistakable aura of a career salesman, and Chloe Reed, a young grad student who looked like she'd pulled an all-nighter, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop. "Morning! Looks like we're neighbors for the next few hours," Ben boomed, extending a hand. "Ben Carter!" Avery gave him a firm, brief shake and a practiced, disarming smile. "Avery, nice to meet you." "You heading home or heading to work?" Ben asked, already stowing his polished leather briefcase with practiced efficiency. "A little of both," Avery offered vaguely, "visiting family, tying up some loose ends for a project." A perfect non-answer. "Ah, the Seattle tech scene, I bet. I've been selling software up there for 20 years. What field are you in?" The inevitable question. Avery had her cover story polished to a mirror shine. "Federal logistics contractor. It's about as exciting as it sounds. Mostly spreadsheets and supply chain analysis." Chloe Reed, the student mumbled, pulling out an earbud. "I'm heading to a marine biology conference at UW. Are you from around here, Avery?" "East Coast originally," Avery lied smoothly. "Just passing through." The small talk continued, a gentle current of harmless questions about weather and travel plans, the universal language of strangers forced into close proximity. While they spoke, Avery's eyes were doing their own work. Her gaze swept the cabin, automatically logging the locations of the emergency exits, the number of flight attendants, the demeanor of the passengers. It was an unconscious threat assessment, a software program that was always running in the back of her mind. She noted the slight tremor in the hand of the flight attendant serving the first-class cabin. Nerves, or just too much coffee? It was a tiny detail, but one that her training had taught her could become terrifyingly important. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard," a calm, authoritative voice crackled over the intercom. "This is Captain Miller. We're expecting a smooth ride up to the Pacific Northwest today. Flight time of about 2 hours and 45 minutes once we're in the air. Cabin crew, please prepare for departure." The massive 737 pushed back from the gate, its powerful engines whining to life. As they taxied toward the runway, Avery watched the ground crew moving with precise, coordinated movements. She felt a pang of something, not quite nostalgia, but a deep, resonant understanding of the intricate dance required to get a multi-ton machine safely into the air. The plane roared down the runway, and the G-force pressed her back into her seat. Most people find that moment unsettling. For her, it was a lullaby. The sprawling grid of Denver receded. Below, and soon they were soaring above a majestic carpet of clouds. "You know," Ben said, snapping his tray table down once the seatbelt sign pinged off, "my brother-in-law was in the Air Force, a mechanic for the big cargo planes, a C-5 Galaxy, I think. He always said the fighter pilots were a different breed entirely, almost inhuman." Avery's posture didn't change, but her hearing sharpened, her focus narrowing on his words. "It takes a certain kind of person, I imagine," she said, keeping her tone light and conversational. "Oh, you have no idea," Ben continued, warming to his subject. "He told me about these pilots who fly the F-22 Raptors. Said they train for thousands of hours, pull more Gs than a normal person could even survive. He called them ghosts in the machine because of how good they are at disappearing." Chloe looked up from her screen, intrigued. "My uncle works for Boeing. He said those jets are basically flying supercomputers. He tried to get me to apply to the Air Force Academy once, but my math skills are not great. Have you ever seen one of those jets up close, Avery? They do air shows sometimes." "Once or twice," Avery replied, deliberately turning her gaze back to the window, a subtle but clear social cue to end the conversation. It was Anti-Advice 101. Never engage on a topic you know too much about. The cabin settled into the familiar rhythm of a long flight, the clinking of the beverage cart, the low murmur of conversations, the steady drone of the engines. 300 miles away, deep inside the granite fortress of Cheyenne Mountain, Senior Airman Diaz squinted at his radar console, a cold knot of dread tightening in his gut. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, was the nerve center of the continent's air defense, a place where quiet vigilance could explode into frantic urgency in a matter of seconds, and something was wrong. "Mountain Command, this is Sentry 4. I've got a fast-moving, uncorrelated target tracking northeast at 20,000 feet, Diaz announced, his voice tight. "No transponder, no flight plan." Major Thorne, the watch commander, was at his station instantly, his face a grim mask in the blue glow of the screens. "What's its profile?" "High speed, low observable. Looks like a military-grade drone, but not one of ours. Its trajectory..." "Sir, it's vectoring directly toward a high-density civilian air corridor." Diaz highlighted the ominous green blip on the main display. It was moving like a shark toward a school of fish. "It's not responding to challenges," Diaz added, "and it's accelerating." This was the no and moment every controller dreads. It's an unknown and it's hostile. Damn it, Thorne swore under his breath. Alert Buckley. I want 2 Raptors in the air 5 minutes ago. Scramble Razor flight for immediate intercept and visual identification. We don't take chances over our own soil. At Buckley Space Force Base, the klaxon alarm ripped through the morning stillness. Before the siren's echo had faded, Major Leo Razor Vance and Captain Eva Siren Rostova were already sprinting across the tarmac, their minds cycling through pre-flight checklists with inhuman speed. Within 3 minutes, 2 F-22 Raptors were tearing a hole in the sky, their twin afterburners painting streaks of raw power against the pale blue horizon. Razor 2, status check. Vance's voice, calm and clipped, came over the comms. I'm green across the board, Razor 1, Rostova replied from his wing. Got a primary lock on the bogey. Looks like he's trying to hide in the ground clutter, but this bird sees everything. Back on Flight 819, the journey was deceptively peaceful. Chloe was the first to notice them, 2 impossibly sharp gray triangles slicing through the clouds far below. Whoa, look at that, she said, her face pressed against the plexiglass. Are those fighter jets? Avery's head snapped up. Her eyes, honed by 1,000 hours of aerial combat, didn't just see jets. They read their intent. She saw their speed, their formation, their intercept vector. This wasn't a training exercise. This was a hunt. Still, she kept her voice as placid as a summer lake. They must be running drills out of a local base. It's nothing to worry about. Ben leaned across Chloe for a look. Wow, Raptors. My brother-in-law would flip, probably just showing the flag, keeping an eye on things. They do that a lot more these days. Avery nodded, her face a mask of casual agreement, but in me 1,000 alarms were blaring. The jets weren't showing the flag. They were in a textbook flanking intercept, a maneuver designed to box in a hostile target. It was aggressive, precise, and utterly terrifying if you knew what you were looking at. In the lead Raptor, Major Vance had eyes on the target. Mountain Command, Razor 1 has visual. It's a drone, all right. Advanced design, Delta Wing, not a model I recognize. Definitely not friendly. Copy Razor 1. Assess threat level. Razor 2, Vance called to his wingman. Getting some heavy EM interference off the bogey. It's painting us with something. Could be a jamming suite. Mountain Command, Vance's voice was suddenly sharp as shattered glass. Confirming hostile intent. This drone is equipped for electronic warfare. I'm recommending immediate diversion of all civilian traffic in this sector, now! The order from Denver Air Traffic Control came a second later, a voice laced with an urgency it tried and failed to conceal. United 819, this is Denver Center. You are to immediately alter course to heading 270, descend, and maintain flight level 240. In the cockpit of the 737, Captain Miller and his first officer exchanged a bewildered glance. Denver Center, United 819, can you state the reason for the immediate deviation? United 819, we have active military operations in your vicinity. This is for traffic deconfliction. Military operations? The first officer muttered. Since when do they run live fire exercises over commercial routes? The plane suddenly banked hard to the right, beginning a rapid descent. Passengers gasped, grabbing for their armrests. Avery felt the distinct lurch in her stomach, the engine pitch changing, the pressure of the turn. Her mask of composure remained, but every muscle in her body was coiled tight. This would be the moment that changed everything. What's going on? Why are we turning so fast? Chloe asked, her voice trembling slightly. A flight attendant, Sarah, hurried down the aisle, her smile stretched thin. Just a small route adjustment to avoid some weather, folks. Nothing to be concerned about. Avery knew that was a lie. You don't dive 10,000 feet to avoid weather you can't even see. She unbuckled her belt, catching Sarah's eye. Excuse me, she said, her voice low but firm. That felt like a lot more than a small route adjustment. Can you tell us what's happening? The captain hasn't advised us of any issues, ma'am. Sarah replied, her professional veneer cracking slightly. "I'm sure it's just procedural." Avery sat back down, but she didn't rebuckle her belt. Her posture was now ramrod straight. Ben Carter was watching her, his salesman's smile gone, replaced by a look of sharp appraisal. "You seem less surprised by this than the rest of us." "It's just an unusual maneuver," Avery said, choosing her words carefully. But then it got worse. Gasps erupted through the cabin as passengers on both sides of the plane began pointing out their windows. The two F-22 Raptors had closed the distance. They were now flying in tight escort formation, so close you could almost see the pilots in their cockpits, their angular, lethal shapes a stark contrast to the commercial airliner. "Oh my God, they're right next to us!" a woman screamed from across the aisle. Panic, a cold and greasy thing, began to slither through the cabin. Avery analyzed their position. Flawless, protective. They were shielding the airliner, putting themselves between it and something else. Sarah's voice came over the PA, strained but holding steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we are being escorted by the U.S. Air Force. This is a standard precautionary measure. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened." Chloe grabbed Avery's arm, her knuckles white. "This isn't standard, is it? Tell me this is normal." Avery looked at the terrified young woman and made a decision. She placed her hand reassuringly over Chloe's. "Listen to me," she said, her voice radiating a calm that seemed impossible under the circumstances. "Those are the best pilots in the world. Having them on our wing means we are in the safest place we could possibly be right now. They will not let anything happen to us." Ben stared at Avery, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. "You said you were a logistics contractor. I read a lot," Avery stammered, knowing how weak it sounded. She knew her cover was evaporating with every passing second. In the lead F-22, the situation had gone from bad to critical. "Mountain Command, Razor 1. The target is deploying its EW package. It's actively jamming all commercial and military frequencies. I repeat, we are in a total jamming environment." The emergency broadcast went out instantly on a protected channel. All stations, this is Mountain Command declaring a state of emergency. Hostile aircraft is engaged in electronic warfare in Sector Bravo 7. In the cockpit of United 819, Captain Miller's world dissolved into a nightmare of screaming static and flashing warning lights. "We've lost everything," he yelled to his first officer. "All comms are down, primary and backup. Navigation is shot." "Declare an emergency," the first officer shouted back over the din. "On what radio? We're flying deaf, dumb, and blind." The 737 shuddered violently as it clipped the powerful wake vortex from one of the Raptors. Screams echoed through the cabin. The flight attendants were struggling to maintain order, their own fear now plain on their faces. What she didn't realize was that her calm was making her the most suspicious person on the plane. "You," Ben said, his voice low and accusatory, pointing a finger at Avery. "You've been calm this whole time, way too calm. What do you know about this?" Avery knew it was over. The charade had crumbled. Her training, the very thing that kept her from panicking, had exposed her. "I just think panic is counterproductive," she said, but the words felt hollow. "You speak their language," Chloe whispered, her eyes wide with a dawning realization. "When you talked about the pilots, you weren't guessing." Before Avery could formulate another lie, Sarah, the flight attendant, was rushing toward her seat, her face ashen. "Ma'am, Avery Sutton, the captain, he needs to see you. In the cockpit, right now." A ripple of stunned silence spread through the surrounding rows. Ben voiced the question on everyone's mind. Her? Why in God's name would he want to see her? Avery stood, her movements fluid and decisive. Her mind was a whirlwind. This was it. Her quiet life was officially over. "I'm sure it's a mistake," she said to no one in particular, but as she walked the aisle toward the front of the plane, she knew there was no going back. Captain Miller looked up as she stepped into the cockpit, his face slick with sweat. "Ma'am, Sarah said you had some kind of federal background. We are in a catastrophic situation. Our radios are fried, our instruments are failing, and we've got 2 military jets on our 6 for a reason I don't want to think about. I'm flying on manual in a complete blackout. Do you have any idea what military protocol is here?" Avery took it all in with a single sweeping glance. The dead screens, the screaming static, the 2 most dangerous aircraft on the planet holding a protective V formation off their nose. "What can I do, Captain? Honestly, I need a miracle. I need someone who understands what those pilots are thinking." Avery took a deep breath. She had tried to run from this life, but it had found her at 37,000 feet. "Captain, I can help, but you need to find me a working frequency to those jets. Any frequency." The first officer stared at her, his face a mixture of desperation and disbelief. "And just who the hell are you?" Avery met his terrified gaze with eyes of cold steel. "I'm someone who speaks their language." In his Raptor, Major Vance watched the hostile drone begin to accelerate, making a direct run at the helpless airliner. "Razor 1 to Mountain. Bogey is making its attack run. It's closing on the civilian bird. Its intent is hostile. I repeat, hostile." Suddenly, a voice, faint but clear, cut through the static on the emergency guard channel, 121.5. "This is United 819. Does anyone read?" Captain Miller grabbed his mic. "Yes, we read you. United 819 reads you 5 by 5. United 819, this is Air Force Razor 1. We have a hostile drone attempting to engage you. We need you to follow our lead immediately for evasive maneuvers." Miller looked at Avery, who gave a single, sharp nod. The flight manual was useless now. She was the manual. "Razor 1, we are ready to comply." Avery reached for the spare headset, her heart pounding a steady, familiar rhythm, the rhythm of command. "Captain, with your permission." Miller didn't hesitate for a second. He handed it to her. "It's your show." Avery keyed the mic, and with a single word, she brought a legend back from the dead. "Razor 1, this is Viper." There was a stunned silence on the other end, so profound it seemed to suck the air out of the cockpit. Then, Major Vance's voice crackled back, laced with utter disbelief. "Say again your call sign, United 819. "Razor 1, Avery repeated, her voice now resonating with the calm, cold authority she had tried to bury for years. "This is Colonel Avery Sutton, United States Air Force, call sign Viper. I am a passenger on your civilian escort." In the second F-22, Captain Rostova nearly stalled her aircraft. "Razor 1, did he just say Viper? As in the Viper?" Vance's voice came back, stripped of all protocol, filled with a reverence bordering on religious awe. "Viper, Major Leo Vance, call sign Razor. Ma'am, if you are who I think you are, it is an unbelievable honor to be flying with you." The weight of command settled back onto Avery's shoulders as if it had never left. "Cut the chatter, Razor. Give me a sit rep now." "Ma'am, we have a hostile UAV equipped for electronic attack 2 clicks off your 9 o'clock and closing. We believe its primary objective is to force a catastrophic failure of your flight systems." "Copy that, Razor. We need to get this bus on the ground. Give me your best alternate airfield." "Affirmative, Viper. We can get you into Buckley. It's the closest secure field, about 15 minutes from your position." Captain Miller and his first officer were just staring at her, their minds struggling to process what was happening. The woman they thought was a logistics contractor was now giving orders to an F-22 pilot, and he was following them without question. "Razor 1, I'll coordinate landing with the civilian crew here," Avery continued, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. "Maintain escort and prepare to neutralize the hostile if it deviates from its current path." "Roger that, Viper," Vance replied, and Avery could hear the grin in his voice. "It is damn good to have you back in the sky, ma'am." For 3 years, Avery had mourned the life she'd left behind. But hearing those words, Feeling the familiar surge of purpose, she realized a part of her had never really left the cockpit. She turned to Captain Miller, whose expression was a mix of shock and dawning respect. "Captain, we can talk about this later. Right now, let's get your plane ready to land." News travels fast, even in a sealed metal tube at 30,000 feet. The story of the mysterious woman in the cockpit had filtered back through the cabin. Ben was staring at Avery's empty seat as if it were haunted. "She said her call sign was Viper," he whispered to the passengers around him. An older man in a Navy veteran's cap sitting a few rows back overheard him and sat bolt upright. "Viper? Did you say Viper? As in Colonel Avery Viper Sutton?" "You know that name?" Chloe asked, her voice hushed. "Know it?" the vet scoffed. "Son, every naval aviator, every Air Force pilot from the last 20 years knows that name. She's the reason they rewrote the book on air combat. They say she took down 5 enemy fighters in a single engagement over the Strait of Hormuz, flew her crippled jet back to base after taking out a surface-to-air missile site that was about to wipe out a SEAL team. She's not a pilot, she's a force of nature." Chloe's jaw was on the floor. The quiet, bookish woman from 18F was one of the greatest military heroes of the modern age. "If that's really her," the veteran said, a new confidence in his voice, "then you can all stop worrying. We're going to be just fine." In the cockpit, Avery was a maestro, conducting a symphony of salvation, her calm instructions guiding the civilian pilots through the emergency landing procedures at an unfamiliar military base. The hostile drone had been dealt with by Razor Flight, but the incident had laid bare a terrifying new threat to air travel. "Razor 1, this is Viper. We are on final approach for Buckley." "Copy, Viper, we see you." "By your leave, ma'am, we'd like to perform a non-standard maneuver on your egress." "Permission granted, Razor." "On behalf of the men and women of the United States Air Force, ma'am," Vance's voice said, filled with genuine emotion, "we'd like to welcome you home with a formal salute." As United Flight 819 touched down on the long military runway, the 2 F-22 Raptors broke formation. In a breathtaking display of aerial artistry, Vance and Rostova pulled their jets into a steep vertical climb, rolling in perfect unison before peeling off in opposite directions, the classic aerial salute, an honor reserved for heroes and heads of state. Every passenger who could pressed their face to the window, watching the silent, graceful tribute. They were watching a legend being honored by the best of the best. "She was sitting right next to me," Ben murmured, shaking his head in wonder. "A living legend, and I was trying to sell her software." "She seemed so normal," Chloe said, tears of relief and awe streaming down her face. The Navy vet smiled knowingly. "That's the thing about true heroes. They don't wear capes. They just show up when you need them most." As the 737 taxied toward a waiting phalanx of emergency vehicles, Avery knew her life of quiet anonymity was over. But as she looked out at the 2 Raptors now flying a protective circle above the airfield, she didn't feel loss. She felt a profound sense of purpose, a feeling she hadn't realized she missed so desperately. The quiet consultant from 18F was gone and Viper was back. Her identity had been revealed not by choice, but by duty, an unbreakable instinct to fly into the storm and protect the people in her care. The passengers of United Flight 819 would tell this story for the rest of their lives, the day they flew with a ghost and were saved by a legend. The day they learned that the greatest heroes are often the ones you'd never notice, sitting quietly in a window seat, waiting for the call. Avery Sutton had tried to run from her past, but in the chaos-filled skies over the Rocky Mountains, she had learned that you can't outrun who you are, especially when who you are is a hero. Make sure to subscribe to Skybound Stories and check out our other amazing stories by clicking the videos on your screen right now.